Chelsey, we are live. I want
Hi.
to. How are we doing? I want to
Good.
welcome everybody to Meet the Staff Mondays. This is a new segment we started last week, where we wanted to make sure that everyone out there in Facebook world had a chance, kind of, to meet some of the Brands of Brunswick staffers. And last week we met Alyssa Balicki, who was a new staffer with the Columbia 300 brand. And this week, we brought on another young superstar, also of the female gender. And we want to welcome today another of Columbia 300's newest staffers, Chelsey Merklinger. How are we doing, Chelsey?
Good. How are you?
I am doing great. Little earlier time for us both today. I know we jumped on here a little earlier than normal because we're both bowling league tonight, which is what everybody that is watching right now. It's one of our favorite things to do. So let's get in here, ask some questions, and get to know Chelsey a little bit better here, and then hopefully both of us go out tonight and we put up some big numbers with some of these amazing bowling balls that are being supplied to us right now. So, um, Chelsey, what I do like to start out with is just asking kind of a couple background questions, so individuals can kind of get to know who Chelsey is off the lanes as well. So, Chelsey, let's start off with an easy one. How old are you?
I am 24.
24. I didn't get yelled at for asking a woman's age. It's a little easier when they're younger. So, but I'll get away with it right now. And Chelsey, obviously I've known you for a long time personally, gotten to work with you over the years. And, but for everybody else out there, kind of tell us a little bit about, your background. Obviously, you are a collegiate graduate. So, where did you do your collegiate bowling?
I bowled 4 years at Delaware State University. I studied psychology.
Okay. Yep. So tell me a little bit about your career there at Dell State. So, I know kind of a little bit about it. I mean, you definitely went to Dell State with some, friends from around your area, but, talk a little bit about your career there, kind of some of your accomplishments while you were there, and go from there.
I made all MEAC 4 years in a row. I made first team 3 times. I was also a academic honorable mention for the NCAA my sophomore year, and I held a few high averages in some tournaments, a few MVP awards, all tournament teams. We also won MEAC championships my sophomore year, and that was incredible.
Absolutely
Absolutely
incredible.
incredible.
Right. So, but you were fortunate enough. You were not, at 24, you weren't impacted by any shortened seasons. So, got to compete all four.
Correct.
You left Delaware State, obviously, with a degree, which is, we
Yes.
spoke about this on the last week, but it's amazing to bowl in college, but it's even more amazing to kind of balance that student athlete requirements. It is challenging no matter what sport you're in, to excel at a high level, not only on the lanes but in the classroom as well. So, kudos to you for going through
Thank
and, and getting that degree, and getting to enjoy some good bowling in the interim part of it as well. So,
you.
um, I do know, again, obviously you were signed to the Columbia 300 brand. I do know Dell State, was a Storm and Rotogrip school. So, how did you end up, kind of with Columbia 300, and looking at kind of that change in manufacturers and kind of finding a home with your brand?
Well, before I went to school, I did throw a little bit of the EVI balls, mostly hammer. The Grape Vibe was my absolute favorite. And then when I went to school, I always felt like there might have been something missing. And when I got out, I obviously talked to you and saw Carrie throwing them and a lot of other collegiate teams throwing them. And I love them. I like the shapes. After I graduated, they had also went to EBI. So I got to see a lot of my old teammates throwing them, and it was something that I felt like, why not? I might as well try it. And they ended up doing amazing things for me. Um, they seemed to roll better through the pins. I had my highest honor scores with them. So I love
Right.
them.
I mean, and honor scores. I mean, talking about that. I mean, obviously, you put up a monster set. I believe not too long before the pandemic. And what was that set, Chelsea? And what were you throwing at the time?
It was an 854 and a diesel torque,
Right.
I
Right. So another
believe.
hammer ball.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Diesel torque 854. You know, I will openly say 854 is higher than my highest set ever. So that's not hard to believe, though. You know, just the background that you have, and I know it wasn't 800, but I think you almost scratched the surface a week or two ago. I think posted 791, and that was with
Yes.
the
Columbia 300 Outlook.
look at that. Yep,
Yes.
Columbia.
Cool.
Uh,
Love it.
Right. So kind of that, that skid flip motion in a ball.
Hmm.
A lot of down lane motion, a lot through the pins. But being under the Columbia brand, obviously, you have a vast variety of choices, not only in the Columbia brand, but the other brands of Brunswick balls that you're capable of throwing. But I know that you have pretty much probably the only one you don't have in the bag yet is the Authority Solid, which I know is en route for you. But what else do you like in the Columbia brand? I mean, you've had a chance to, I believe, throw the Authority at this point.
Hmm. Yes, I really like the authority. I've never, for me, like pearls have always been like an issue. Like I get a lot of over under with them, but the two that I've thrown, I have no issues like that. I find the authority, the original, to be a lot earlier, and I like that shape specifically. For me, um, I like to know that a ball is going to go through the pins. That's
Right.
and I see
Yeah.
that in that.
And it makes sense. I mean, for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to see Chelsea throw a ball down the lane, Chelsea is probably what we would describe as a little bit rev dominant, and a little spinny through the front part of the lane. So that energy retention to get more of it through the pins is pretty critical. So it doesn't surprise me, going back, look at your 850, using a diesel torque with the, kind of an early motor there, and being able to see the front part of the lane and being really good through the pins makes a lot of sense. But again, now you have seven brands at your fingertips, and kind of that array of shapes through the brands that is able to be thrown. So you, just like me, I'm exceptionally excited to just have so many options. I mean, and I think that's one of the biggest things when we come on here and talk, and as you meet some of the rest of the staff, is that we feel pretty privileged. We feel that having the support of our brands and being able to essentially throw so many different shapes is we got a leg up on the competition, and I think it's pretty encouraging. But so you're out of college now. You're in the working world, and obviously doing a balance between working and bowling. But what's on the radar for you, Chelsea? I mean, what's the next goal or the next steps in your career?
Um, well, once the tour comes back, I do want to compete in more stops. Last year, I only competed in two of them, and three, actually, sorry, three. And I want to kind of hit as many as I can, or as many as work will allow. Um, so that's what I want to do. I want to compete in more local tournaments, just more tournaments in general, because I miss that.
Right.
So.
And and bowling at this point right now is, I really do see it starting to come back pretty hard, as restrictions are
Mhm.
being lifted in areas, and we're able to get more and more individuals into these centers. I think the tournament scene. Hopefully, we're seeing that upward tick to getting back out there on a more full time basis, and on just like yourself, I know some of the other girls. Each one of them we've spoken to. Between Alyssa and Carrie and some of the others. you just want to get back. You want to get back out there on tour and, continue that next chapter and kind of see where, the progression of your game goes. And, nothing better than, being at the top level and seeing how you stack up, right?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things I love most competing when I did compete on tour last year was just everything. Everything, just looking up to the girls that like I have looked to growing up and seeing them compete and being able to compete next to them is incredible. Even some of the girls that I bowled against in college, I also got to see also. So like that's probably my favorite part.
Right, right. So, and there's a couple questions that are coming through here, and if you can't see it
Yeah.
on your end, flashing it up there. Chad Eckenroth asked, what is your benchmark ball in your bag right now?
Well, it depends on like if I'm bowling in league, I know usually, especially my local centers, like what I can start with. I usually start with what I can score best with or what I have had previous success with, and then go based off of that. Like tonight, I'm probably going to throw the Outlook,
Okay.
and then I'll probably switch to something else. But during a tournament, um, Web Tour, probably when I get mine, the Web Tour Hybrid, my Outlook, or not my Outlook, my Uppercut also was like that for me. Um, yeah,
So kind of in that, for you, kind of that benchmark is smoother, symmetrical, and if
yes,
we're into the numbers, kind of the lower differentials, which makes a lot of sense because you're again, you and I have spoke so many times over the years talking about front to back on lanes
yes.
and truly understanding how to read a lane pattern. And it makes sense, and I think you brought up a good point, and there is a difference between league bowling and obviously bowling in tournaments and or on sport, and that can differ a little bit, but Chelsey made a good point where she said, I'm going to bowl league tonight and I'm going to use kind of what I know works well there. So it's not like, for everyone out there, just because we have, all these balls across the brands, we don't always go to league and throw a different ball every week, right? We want to score. So, Chelsey just bowled 791 like a week ago with an Outlook. So her
Mhm.
answer was, I'm going to throw the Outlook, I'm going to look at it first. And, it's kind of a no brainer. But I think it's important, and every one of these feeds has the same theme. Looking at the front to back movements and going from there. But speaking of which, Carrie put up a question here, but she threw one up here. She wanted to know, growing up, who was your biggest influence in the sport, and maybe meaning, it doesn't have to be a player. Um, what you got?
Honestly, any professional bowler that hooked a ball, to be honest. But from a personal note, my mom. Uh, she always was that like competitive. She might have always been one dimensional, but she knew how to be good at one thing. And she really installed that like competitiveness in me. So my mother, 110%.
All right. Yeah, that's a good answer too, and I'm sure Ellen is watching, and obviously we know not only Ellen, but everybody knows your dad is Munch, but is probably on
Mm-hmm.
here, watching right now and loving the fact that getting to continue to see their daughter excel in the lanes and kind of getting into that next chapter in her life as well. But
Mm-hmm.
outside of bowling, Chelsey, some of the other, things that come to my mind is, what else outside of bowling is kind of makes up Chelsey? What other interests do you got? Hobbies, anything along that line?
Um, to be honest, I'm a homebody most of the time, between work and whatever, but watching movies. I could sit down and watch movies all day. I have two little 8-month old puppies, so they also like consume my life. So that has become my new hobby, just running around with them and staying active, that kind of stuff.
Honestly, I did not know you had two little puppies, so that's kind of unique. But
Yes.
from the movie portion, so I'm going to ask. I'm not going to flash it on the screen, but what's Chelsea's number one movie, or what are some of the top fives, if you will?
Um, Burlesque. Um, Girl's Favorite Notebook, A Walk to Remember. Um, I
Why does it have to be a
also,
girl's favorite? I mean, I'm just asking. You act like I haven't seen the Notebook here. You know.
I mean, chick flicks, it's usually one
Okay.
sided.
Yeah,
Um, I loved Peppermint. If you haven't seen it yet, you should
I
probably
have.
watch it. Um, let's see. I think that kind of like sums up my top five. I could watch them over and over again. I have the soundtrack of Burlesque on my phone I listen to before bowling. Yeah.
Okay, almost like a pump up song, kind of to get going.
Yes.
All right. So Paul Moore jumped in here. Paul Moore wanted to know, from a professional like you, your standpoint, what one practice tip would you give to all young bowlers? Like, if you could pick one thing out to really help them, what would that be?
Um, I would say go in with a purpose. I know a lot of times, like young bowlers, like they just like to go out and have fun, or you just want to get out and throw bowling balls. But if you're looking to progress in the sport into college, high school, professionally, I would say just have a plan, have a focus. And for me, I notice sometimes I can be a little, out there sometimes when I practice. That the thing that helps me focus is taking a break. Like, don't just go through the motions. Make sure whatever you practice in, you also put towards league or tournaments. Free shot routines really help.
All right, so practice with purpose, basically.
Yeah.
Going in there, I know journaling is big for a lot of individuals, and
Mhm.
whatever it takes, but kind of to go along with that is to really know what you're going into practice on, right? So we practice our
Yes.
weaknesses, and we want to go in there and not just go, okay, I'm going to go bowl 3 games of practice. No, we're going to go in
Right.
there, and this is what I'm going to work on because maybe I struggle with it at the last tournament I was at, or it's just something that I continue to think I can be a little better at.
Right. And I think another thing, like to add on to that, Jeff, is like once, if you start working on something and you get really frustrated, if you have something else that you want to work on, do that. Because by getting frustrated in the middle of practice, you're not really learning anything. You're just kind of hurting the process.
Right. So, aside from the physical game side, what mental tools do you rely on in a tournament competition to keep you focused? Say
Um,
what's in your head. I mean, maybe.
I do. I'm a really I'm a really superstitious bowler also. So like certain songs I make sure I listen to right before I start. Whether it's jamming in the car or something. And when I get frustrated during tournaments, that's what I do. I like sit back in the back, I stand there and I just like stare off and sing a
Mhm.
song. And it usually helps me get back on track.
We joke about it all the time. I think the song I play the most in my mind is "Frozen," like "Let It Go."
Let it, yep.
If I'm struggling, it's like the "Let It Go" song on repeat in my
Yep.
in my mind. You bowl league too often, you get a case of the grabbies. So,
Yes.
um, another one coming through here. Quite a bit of questions, which is really good. Brandon Hinder asked, how do you prepare when you go to a tournament? We talked a little bit about a benchmark ball, but do you approach it differently? What other things do you do when you're going into a tournament?
Um, well, I go into every tournament the same. I can win. Um, I
Awesome.
kind of mental prepare more so than physically prepare, I would say, because for me, like physical, yes, is important, but what gets you through your tough physical times is your mental game. And so I go in, I always have the mindset I can win. I make sure I read a lot of bowling articles too, just a lot of psychological things, just to kind of get my mind in that mode that, like, okay, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do this, and whatever happens, happens, but I know that I have the capability to win.
Good. And that's honestly an amazing, bit of advice that you just gave there. For any of you out there that are thinking about bowling tournaments or wanting to get better, one of the biggest things is you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you are capable of winning before you go in. If you're an individual that goes in and is just I hope I do okay. You probably shouldn't enter the tournament. It's one thing to, get the feet wet and stuff. First couple tournaments, but the whole thing is I mean, you're entering because you feel like you have a chance to come home with a title, and whether that's
Mhm.
for monetary reasons or it's for, the title or a banner or a trophy or tiara. It's important. You have to believe in yourself first. When you have negativity in your game or lack of confidence, you're not going to be your best out there, right?
Mhm.
And we drill that in, and Chelsey, I'm sure if you're working with youth or fellow players, anything along those lines, it's something you kind of hit home on. We got tons of questions, Chelsey. Here, you're pretty popular
I
here, so we're gonna keep firing
love
them up here. But
it.
I love it. I like the
Good.
interaction,
Good.
and we'll keep going up. So, Terry Mize, Terry, beforehand, congratulations, Terry finished eighth at the PBA regional down in Towson this weekend. So phenomenal bowling there, Terry. Glad to have you on here. Two questions. Do you get nervous prior to bigger tournaments? Also, how do you maintain a pretty level set of emotions on the lane?
Um, do I get nervous? Yes, I always get nervous. Seeing people that you've always looked up to from a bowling perspective makes you nervous, I feel. And if you're not nervous, then like you're not taking in the full moment. Um, so yeah, I do get really nervous. And the second question to that, I can't say that I maintain a very good emotional level. I'm a very emotional player. Even during league, people think I'm crazy because I'll yell or I'll get excited. Um, but what happens on the approach happens on the approach. What stays behind is behind. So for me, the moment I step up there, it's a new frame, it's a new shot. Um, I forget about everything else.
And,
So
and
that's
and that's good.
that's
Maybe
how I
some
do
of
it.
that, that emotion and stuff, and kind of getting into it. Obviously, some of that comes from the collegiate level, right?
Oh yes,
Very team oriented.
yeah.
Supporting one another with the good and the bad, right? So,
Hmm.
not every tournament you bowled in with your teammates was great. Bad score
Exactly.
shooting, but you always supported each other, right? And you always wore your emotion on your sleeve, and you excelled together and you failed together, and that's youth, right?
Absolutely.
And that's no different than your team now as you're working with Columbia 300 and stuff. We
Right.
learn together, we fail together,
Hmm.
along those lines. But we'll take one or two more questions here, gang, because believe it or not, Chelsey, obviously I love to talk, right? But
Yeah.
23 minutes in, does it feel like we were on for 23 minutes? Because it never does, right? We can talk about bowling
Absolutely not.
forever. But
All
Chris
the time.
Wilson threw one up here, and he put, I know most people look at a pattern that's posted a lot, but don't pay attention to the volume, which is a huge factor. Is that something you always look at? So I think what Chris is saying is, how much do you really, read in or kind of look at patterns before you go into a tournament?
I'm not like most. I don't look at it. If it's something if like I initially look at the graph and it's not something I'll understand or something that is really important, I guess you would say, is I more so look at the ratios. But other than that, I look at it for like 3 minutes, look at the volume, look at the length,
Hmm.
look at the ratios, and then I'm done. I don't research what tournaments it's played at or how people have played or where everything is because to me, you can lay that pattern down and in five different houses and it's always going to play different.
Right. I think
So,
we've had that conversation quite a bit,
yeah,
back and forth, and you know all too well. I'm one of those guys who is pretty adamant about saying, release the pattern. You're, by withholding it, you're not hurting anything because everybody could put it down in a different center and it's not going to be close.
right.
I'll put stuff out obviously in my center with 75-year-old wood, and do you think it's going to play the same? No chance, right? With
No.
different, the surface is different. We have a different oiling machine. We use different oils. I mean, there's so many variables that come into play.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think,
and I think it's pretty cool to say that we rely more on letting our ball tell us what the pattern wants.
yeah, because I noticed that more when I got into college. We basically bowled on the same pattern for every tournament except for maybe a few, and it always played different. It was
Mhm.
roughly the same, but it always played different. Your ball always hooks in a different area just depending on what house you're at. So,
All right. Good. Chris had a kind of another part of that question. It's pretty long-winded here, so I'm just going to condense it. But let's say for a player, like if you were to give a player some advice that feels like they used to feel like they had a ton of confidence and they kind of lost that a little bit and kind of lost their way. Like what would you focus on, or what do you think would help kind of gain some of that back? You know.
well, I would say to anybody that everyone goes through it. I went through it when I got out of college, getting back into league, and something just like you just lose that part of yourself. And sometimes what I did to get it back and what I know other people have is just you always have to go back to the reason why you started in the first place.
Right.
And just instead of going out and doing what you love, go out and watch it and see people doing it, and just the interaction and being around people that are good support systems for you also helps. Um, for me, bowling with my mom helped. Um, so I would just say go back. Think of the good times that you had before things went south. So,
Good. All right, I'm going to flash one more up here, Chelsey. This one, I know you can see it already, but it's going to come up, and this is coming from my kitchen. All right, my kitchen. You talked a lot about, songs and stuff. But what is your current pump up song? Like, what is that one song right now?
uh, well, I can't say I have one. I have like four that I listen to every time I bowl, including on the way to Wednesday night. I listen to Champion by Carrie Underwood. I listen to Mother Daughter by Miley Cyrus. I listen to This Is Me from the Showman soundtrack. And I listen to any Chris Brown song. I probably have tons of them. He's my favorite. But my absolute, what I really jam out to is Champion. I like turn it up really loud. My mom's always like, "Can you please turn it down?" And I'm like, "No, I can't." So, yeah.
I mean, mine shine bright like a diamond on the way to league. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
Yes. Get that
to
Rihanna.
be honest,
Yes.
it's Riri. If you watch enough
Mm-hmm.
movies, what you do, Mike and Dave need wedding dates. It's Riri.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Definitely.
always have to put a little humor in there. You know how it is, and we're just approaching the 30-minute mark, and I promised both of us that I would get us out of here in under 30 minutes. But
Yeah.
Chelsey, I really appreciate you taking time and getting on here and allowing individuals to kind of get to know you a little better, and hopefully follow along with your career moving forward here. And we're really excited, as personal friends to you, to kind of watch where your next step in your career takes you here. And hopefully, from me to you, hopefully the Lucy mixed doubles gets rescheduled here, because a little tidbit.
Yes.
My partner at the Lucy was going to be Chelsey, and unfortunately, it was postponed. So we were really looking forward to lacing up and giving it a go out there, and seeing how strong Chelsea's back is to carry this old man. But again, thanks for coming on with us. If anybody thinks of any additional questions that maybe they wish they would have asked, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Chelsey does have a new athlete page. Chelsey, do you have I don't want to mess up the address, so you have it under what?
Oh. Um, I believe it is just
Chelsey
Chelsey.
Merklinger athlete page, probably.
Yeah, I do
Um,
believe so.
and Chelsey, Chelsey put it up there. So if you have questions, that would be a good place to look Chelsey up on Facebook, where she's putting up,
Yeah,
tournaments she's
can you see
participating
it?
on. There it is. There it is. I
Athlete
will.
page.
That's right. And, that's a good place to reach out to Chelsey if you have questions. Follow along with what her career is doing, what bowling ball she's using, and, what's maybe coming forward, or some tips that you may have that you want to ask her about. So, reach out to her. Again, always our closing remarks. We want to make sure that everyone out there supports bowling. Please go out, get some practice in, join some leagues. By all means, from us, from Chelsey and myself, please, take a look at the brands of Brunswick. Reach out to us. We will answer any questions that you have. And stay tuned. Tomorrow we will be back. We will have a guest on the program tomorrow for our Talk About It Tuesday session, which is going to be the Brunswick Prism Warp Hybrid. The person on tomorrow is not quite as popular as Chelsey, but I will try and make sure I, kind of drag him along. Parker Bowden third. He's I'm not sure if anybody knows him, but he will be here tomorrow to talk with us a little bit more about bowling and in general. So tune in then, and if you're bowling tonight in league, great scores, and we'll talk to everybody soon. All right, have a good evening.
Bye.